Okay, we're on our last video of this lesson, and in this video we're going to talk about the toString method. You created methods of your own. You made up your own name for those methods. Here's one that has a built-in name. You don't have to have a toString method, but if you don't, Java's going to put one in anyway, and it might not do what you want. So let's get going and see what the toString method is all about. Now, how do you print out an entire class? We've gotten used to printing out values by, say, typing a variable name into system.out.println. For example, we can write double D equals 5.0, meaning we've got a variable of type double with a value of 5. And then when we do system.out.println D, we get 5.0 printed out. Or if we do system.out.println and combine some string characters like the value of D is, and then concatenate that to D, D automatically gets changed to a string. It gets changed to the string version of 5.0 and tucked right up against the value of D is. And this would print out the value of D is 5.0. Happens seamlessly for us. We don't have to do it. D automatically gets turned into a string when a string is the appropriate thing to use, like when you're printing something out. Well, this works for objects too, automatically. Sort of. We can do the same thing for variables that are objects as we can for variables that are doubles or ints. At least Java lets us do it, but it's not always real useful. Going back to the example that we did in the practice video, suppose I've got a class called grades, and I create an object called myGrades that I start as a new grades object with test scores of 100, 90, and 80. Then I do system.out.println myGrades. This will work. This will print something out. Or I can do system.out.println the value of my grades is, and then concatenate my grades. But what's going to get printed out? You get this. Here's what the previous code prints out. Grades at 8814E9. You, if you try it in Eclipse, might get something a little bit different here after the @ sign. And then it'll print the value of my grades is grades at 8814E9. What's it doing? That isn't a test score of 100 or 90 or 80. Well, each class has a default method called toString, which doesn't take any parameters and it returns a string value. Now, as you saw in the previous example, the default is to return the name of the class. In our example, that was grades, followed by the memory of address of where the object is located. That was that funny at 8814E, whatever those letters were. You can override this, and in fact, I encourage you always to override toString when you create your own class. So how do you do that? You have public string toString taking no arguments. That's the signature of the toString method. Public string toString, no arguments. Well, make this a method anywhere in your class. If you don't have it, the system will use its default. If you do have it, it'll use this instead. And then you put whatever code you want between the opening brace and the closing brace. Since this said public string, I have to return a string value. The way I usually do it is I create myself a variable called s, string s, and I start it out as the string containing absolutely nothing, just double quote, double quote. And then I start concatenating to it, s plus equals, meaning take what was in s and now concatenate to it whatever I have on the right-hand side of the equals sign. Maybe I put grades object, the 3, and then I continue on the next line. Test scores are test 1 and test 2 and test 3. Then I make sure I return that string value. So these statements here, all these s plus equals, put values, appropriate values that mean something into a string variable called s, return s, means whoever called me